Hi, this is Jen Strouser from Dizzy Quilter. Today I'm going to show you how I am making Moravian stars this year. Last year I did them all by hand. It takes 3 days. It's a big time commitment. This year I figured out how to do at least one of the steps with my sewing machine. Makes it a little faster. If you aren't familiar with Moravian stars, they are three-dimensional paper-pieced ornaments. This is one of them I made last year, or maybe 2 years ago. It has been packed in a suitcase, which is not a great idea, and it has also been played with by a dachshund, not recommended. It gets squished. So this is one that hasn't been squished. But for the Christmas ones, I really like the stripe effect. The stripe fabric gives me a kaleidoscope easy. It's you just have to line up the pieces. It's not a big challenge. This one was a little tougher. I have the little owls all fussy cut, so their little lines line up. It takes more work. This is a big one if you want to make a huge one. They're fun. Takes a lot of time. But so let's get started. I will show you what supplies you need for this project and show you how I figured out how to use my sewing machine for part of it. For the Moravian Star I'm going to show you today, this is everything that I need to make it other than an iron and a sewing machine. I start with a fat quarter or so of a striped fabric. This gives me the kaleidoscope effect that I have on this one, and it's not terribly hard to get these points to line up and make that effect. So I really like to use that. It's kind of an easy fussy cut. This one is made with 60-degree diamond templates. I buy my templates at paperpieces.com. I think if I have any of the fabrics still on hand, I will put together kits and list them in my Etsy shop with the correct pieces. Otherwise, you can get these at paperpieces.com. The fabric that I'm using, this one is a seasonal print from last year from Joann's. I'll use whatever I have on hand to make the Moravian stars. I don't go crazy with expensive fabric. You can use expensive fabric if you like it. This is what I had today to work with. So these are paperpieces.com. It's a 60-degree diamond. That means this angle is 60 degrees. This angle is 30. You need 60 of them. I use some pearl cotton. I use this as a loop to make a hanging cord if I have forgotten to get ribbon to match. Rotary cutter and ruler. I like to use this Elmer's Extreme Glue to glue the pieces down, but for some reason this time it seems to be letting go a little bit. So as backup, I have some Roxanne glue based it. If I had the permanent one, I would use that instead, but I have this one. It has a nice narrow applicator so I can get a fine line everywhere I need it to be. And it dries and sets up really quickly with the iron. And then for thread, when you do the seams, here to take this flat piece and curve it and make the little basket that's going to fit in here, this part is not, these stitches are not going to show because you're going to stitch them from the inside. So for that, I'll use this. This is a silk thread. You don't have to use silk. You can use anything that'll blend. I just happen to have this, and it sinks really nicely into the fabric, and it'll be basically invisible. When you take these little baskets and attach them together from the outside, you stitch along the outside here, and your stitches are definitely going to show. And they're very clear. So you can do it two ways. You can try to get a thread that's really fine and matches really well. This one I think I chose to use a chartreusey color. So you can see my stitches, they're pretty small. So for this piece, there's a lot of this dark green. So I have this green thread, and because I'm a Yankee and I don't like to waste things, even if my dog ate the spool a bit and it won't work on my machine now, this green color will just be perfect, and then maybe I can use a little bit up. So that's everything you're going to need. Except for I like to I'll use a little leather dot thimble on my finger for where I push the needle so that it doesn't go through my finger. And then I use needle. These are my favorite kinds of needles. I either use a John James straw needle, which is a little easier to work with if I can figure out how to get it out of the package. It's got a fairly decent eye on it. I don't know. You're going to have to take my word for that. But it's a nice thin needle. And then if I'm feeling especially like I really, really want my stitches to be invisible, I use one of these Hiroshima tulip needles. I guess they're the Tulip Company and they're made in Hiroshima. They're very fine and they almost go through the fabric by themselves. They're very nice. If I'm a little tired, I try not to use those so much because they also go right through me very nicely. You don't even really feel it, but then there's blood on your project, which is not my favorite thing. So that is everything you're going to need for these Moravian stars, along with some time and patience. I am going to take my glue sticks now and apply my diamonds to my fabric. So what I do is I have the Elmer's Extreme glue. It's really sticky. I get glue on my fingers. If somebody knows a way to avoid that, I would love to hear it. I line up my diamond. I pick a line in the fabric and line it up straight along that line. Really straight so that the kaleidoscope will form properly. And push it down. The next one. So it's important when you space them out along the line that they have at least a ½ inch between pieces so that you can cut your seam line accurately. With normal paper piecing, the seam allowance doesn't have to be accurate. It really helps when assembling with the sewing machine so that, you know, you can't see the papers on both sides. But if the seam allowances are cut accurately, you can line them up and you know that you won't sew through the paper. Yeah, one more. And I will take this over to my ironing board. Oh, that's a lot of glue. And hit it with the iron just to make sure these are really fused down tightly. But for now, we're going to cut these babies out. So when I'm cutting, I make sure, let's see, I have a better ruler for this. I have a ruler problem. I have a lot of rulers. You could get away with just one in your collection probably, but I have a lot more than that. When I'm cutting, I make sure that the edge of my paper is right there at that 1/4 inch seam, or the 1/4 inch marking here, so that I'll get a nice accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm only going to demonstrate with one of these because otherwise it just takes a while. And honestly, I just don't have that much witty banter to share. So I'll cut the next one. I start the next one to keep myself from flipping everything around and around. Too much, you know, the more you handle the pieces, the more likely your glue is going to let go. So I do that for all 5. And it's a very accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance, or as good as I can get. And I need a set of 5. And then I'll take it over to my sewing machine and show you how we do that next step. That's all 5 of my diamonds. I am going to set them up on this little ruler so that I can see how to lay them out. Get them all turning in the same direction. Let me tell you, doing this stuff with a video camera is much more challenging than doing it without one. All right, those are ready to get stitched together.